see themselves as a messianic reality, right? They saw themselves.
Tell you real quick what it has to do.
They saw themselves as creating a Jewish state or a place where Jews can go, where they can feel safe and protected, and sort of in somewhat seclusion or isolation, but also have self-determination from.
We're in agreement with that. We're in agreement. At least I am in agreement. I don't know about the rest of the room, but I'm in agreement with you with that. But what I am saying is this. Here's why it's important. Because when he was boots on the ground, he was able to galvanize the local population, the people that we would now call Palestinians. The promise was that if they rose up against the Ottoman Empire and helped disturb the supply chains, that they could then have their own nation. And what happened?
So that's the thing, is that they were going to have their own nation, right? Did you mute or would you?
After they gave him.
Sorry, you went out for a second.
Yeah, my bad. I got a phone call. My bad. So after they gave him their support, and after they fought on his behalf and on essentially the Crown's behalf, they were not given what they were promised. And this begins the slow road to where we're at today.
Yeah, so that was the thing. So that's why I remember there was a partition plan in I think 1936 or something like this.
No, the partition plan comes later than that.
No, 1946. It was before the creation of the modern state of Israel. And actually, the United Nations had, when they were creating all of these other states, again, Libya, Syria, and Egypt, modern day Egypt, modern day Turkey, all of these countries, right? And also including Jordan, they said okay, there will be a state of Israel and there will be a state of Palestine.
Right. So let's at least correct history real quick. So the first time the concept of a state of Israel came was before the United Nations.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so that's the League of Nations. Now, the thing is this is what they promised the locals who rose up against the Ottoman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And then they turned around and reneged on their promise.
No, they didn't renege on the promise.
Absolutely.
The reason why they did not renege on the promise is because they had a vote. They had a vote of the League of Nations, and at the same time that they had a vote of the League of Nations for the state of Israel, and everybody had a vote. It was the Arab countries actually that did not want a state of Palestine.
Okay, so now you're talking.
British Empire.
Right.
It gives them power in Saudi Arabia, Emirates Arabia.
Right. So Ron, once again,
I don't even know what Ash is saying, but go ahead.
You're confusing the mandate of Palestine with later and British.
No, I'm not.
Exactly.
I'm not confusing them.
No. So Ron, here's the thing. When they first proposed it with the League of Nations, the idea of a state of Israel was shot down. Now, after World War II, it was actually approved. What I'm saying to you is they had already promised the locals who rose up and disturbed the supply chains of the Ottoman Empire. They had already promised them, hey, don't be scared of these people who are ruling over you. If you rise up and help us, we're gonna make sure that you have your own nation. And
they also made the same promise to the Jews, like that was 40 years earlier, right?
But who was on the land in a majority fashion before?
It doesn't matter who was on. It doesn't matter who was on the land in the majority fashion. This is one. Excuse me, crisis. Excuse me. It doesn't matter. One, it doesn't matter who was on the land in the majority fashion, as you say. Two, the land that the Jews wanted for the land that the Jews wanted for the state of Israel was land that they purchased, right?
I agree with you about the purchase.
There was the Jewish National Fund, which was a fund that the Jews put their money there to purchase land. They had already been purchasing land from during the
we could sing together, but we can't talk together.
While I'm talking, I'm trying to.
Is there any possibility of a
Ron, if you could, Ron, you've been talking for a while now, so if you could wrap it up and allow other people to speak, because a lot of people are not agreeing with you on stage and also in the goo.
No, they don't have to agree. I mean, it's the history.
I understand that, but they want a rebuttal, so you have to allow that.
Okay, so fine. Can I speak with one person at a time? I'll speak
Ron,
with
can you
Crisis.
stop there? You already covered.
Let's stop. Emperor, can you kind of continue?
Yeah,
Actually,
I'll try. This is really hard. So, the Jewish National Fund, like there is a lot of stuff to correct. Like it's impossible to do it in one go. The Jewish National Fund didn't purchase the land, right? Or any quantity of land that is similar to modern day borders of internationally recognized Israel. They purchased 5% of the mandate. That's one thing. Second thing, there is a confusion between the mandate and UN partition plan, and then what Crisis was saying, this is why Lawrence of Arabia is important, right? The promise given to the people in Palestine through negotiations of Lawrence of Arabia. There's a film, it's a really good one, check it out. And a separate promise to the Jewish people that will come through with the Balfour Declaration with some caveats, right, that it's still allowed for people on the land there that will later change with political statements coming from the British, right? The conflation of the Transjordan as a separate state that is designated for Palestinian is incorrect. There are two mandates for Palestine, right? So if you're saying, I don't know if you're saying that, Ron, that promise to the Palestinians in a two-state solution is fulfilled, it's not fulfilled. That mandate is a completely different thing. It is unrelated to any notions of two-state solution. Jordan is not the state of Palestinians. What else was there? Let's stop here.
No, Emperor. The other part that you're trying to remember is the time frame. It's based off of them giving the promise to the locals who uprise against the Ottoman Empire versus the time that they decided that they granted the land of Israel to be for the Jewish people. That was the other part. If you can go into that.
The mandate from the Balfour Declaration, what's the dates on those? I can't remember off the top of my head.
1917.
Yes, the mandate I think it happens concurrently. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, actually, the Faisal-Weizmann agreement, which promises some land, and it wasn't Lawrence of Arabia apparently that did it himself. I found some documents. I'm looking it up. Happened in 1919, which was 2 years after the Balfour Declaration, which is where the British promised land already to the Jews.
Right, and Ron, just to clarify you, Ron, and I'm gonna give it back to you, Emperor. What happened with that is that he was the one who was on the ground. In order for him to gain the favor and support, this was what the generals above him told him to say to the locals. The locals then had a belief and a favor to get out of the Ottoman rule and fight on behalf of what they felt was going to be a future nation for them. Lawrence of Arabia himself, in his own memoirs, talks about how he regretted the fact that they didn't live up to that promise. But the governments say that they didn't formally ever give them that promise. Now we get into the semantics of things. if you're going to manipulate the people to fight on your behalf and then turn around and say, well, we never formalized it, so therefore we don't have to live up to that agreement. How fair is that for the people who were already there, fought, bled, and died for a cause that you wanted? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yet, not you meaning Ron, but you meaning the allied powers versus the Axis powers. But yet you turn around and backdoor them on the end. Like of course you're gonna create a generational beef after that. Of course. Like
Yeah,
of course.
that goes to the.
I think that, have you read these documents? Have you actually read these documents? The Faisal Weissman document? Have you read this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But the thing is, those are the.
No, you read the entire document.
Those are the formal documents. I'm talking about what they were actually told.
No, I know what you feel like what they were actually told. Like that, we don't know what they were actually told word for word.
I mean, he said in his own memoir.
We know what's written down, right? That's what we know. We know what contracts are written down. We know what amendments and statements and those things that were written down. We have copies.
And now you just said the key word. Contract.
Can we?
Contracts and amendments.
But did you read this document? Because
why are we getting into this rabbit hole? Like I'm sorry.
It's not a rabbit hole. The question is did you read the documents?
Yes, I read it. I read the documents, and the documents argue to your point. What I'm saying
in the Balfour Declaration, for example, right? People always they mention it, but they never mention that the Balfour Declaration itself promises that the inhabitants on the native inhabitants on the Jewish land that will become the Jewish state, even including that 5 to 7%, whatever it is, would have full rights and citizenship within that territory, right? So that was in this this Faisal Weissman agreement. Anybody can look it up. It's on the United Nations website. It also promises a partnership between the two parties, the head of a Palestinian group, and the President Weissman was the first Israeli president, I think, or second Israeli president, I forget which one, who, and they promised that there will be also a partnership. And as a matter, like, they would have the Jewish land and they would have the Palestinian land. And
so Ron, before I answer you, can we let Ash jump in real quick? Because Ash has been trying to get in forever.
It seems as if in the Faisal Weissman.
Why are we in this rabbit hole? Like I'm really serious.
It's not a rabbit hole. It's not a rabbit hole.
I need 30 seconds, please. 30 seconds.
Yeah, can we let Ash jump in? Hey, Ash, it's all on you.
Because I'm going underground soon, so I just have 30 seconds. Please, guys, I hope and I wish from all my heart, because the benefit of the United States population is the benefit of European population, is the benefit of African population, is the benefit of ASEAN and South Asian population. We don't have to run after this kind of these motherfucker science because they have them way and the religion and prophecy, and they try to negate the reality to become and accept them fucking prophecy. We live well. We can live very, very fucking effectively, perfectly without them. Don't let us and don't let the MAGA make America great again, make everyone great again, got corrupted or got, how I can say it, interfered. Somebody come in and try to disrupt and broken down the MAGA. Make America and population of America great again. Look at how the people living, and if America going war, what's they gonna lose? How much money is they gonna drop down? How much blood they gonna drop down? How much? And tell you, if you give a chance for any person to come and to corrupt the MAGA or corrupt or deviate the MAGA direction, don't give him a chance. Just put him in a cross and just
Thank you.
do what you have to do.
Okay. So, Ron, all due respect, Crisis, like the historical tangent is interesting in terms of how duplicitous the British are, but all of those things have no legal meaning for modern day politics, right? The people in Palestine and people who are not in Palestine and have the right of return and lived in Palestine and have been forcibly displaced have a right of self-determination and right of return, irrespective of.
You're using modern.
No, let him finish.
Hey Gemini, happy Saturday.
Hey, happy Saturday.
Gemini, you know I still need one of your dogs, but yeah.
Yeah, irrespective of Lawrence of Arabia, interesting history, right? People of Palestine, right? Or people who are.
By the way, I can't hear nothing you guys are saying. I'm in the middle of a call, so I'll definitely chime in later, but I'm not here. I'm here, but I'm...
Okay. I'll drop.
He just said Lawrence of Arabia, but he just said
Okay.
yeah,
I
he
was
just
saying,
says that Lawrence of Arabia, he was a homosexual and he corrupted all the family.
Emperor, finish what you were saying, boy.
I'm saying that people today, right, like irrespective of Lawrence of Arabia Korea's history, it's a tangent, as though legal being, right? It has some normative, moral story about how British promise everybody everything and do not deliver, right? But people of Palestine, Palestinians, have the right of self-determination. That is an inalienable right under international law, irrespective of Lawrence of Arabia history. So it's a tangent. It doesn't inform any notion of legality or right.
Right, so Emperor, can I tell you something real quick, Emperor? You know that
Sure.
what you just said just now is literally the same argument that the U.S. government or the United States population make against the Native Americans.
Sorry,
Because
what?
and I'm gonna tell you why. Because what will happen is they'll come to a certain area and be like, "Hey, we wanna be able to hunt and fish and build houses in this area. Can y'all help us?" And then they help them, and then they turn around a season later because they were moving. They were like nomads. They were moving around.
You misunderstood.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood you because what I'm saying is this. The reason why I brought up Lawrence of Arabia was because I was trying to point out the way that they use legal contract versus verbal contract. The verbal contract is what they used in order to get the local population, Palestinians, to rise up against their ruling party, the Ottomans. But then afterwards, they reneged on it. And when they reneged on it, that's what started to create the resentment that has festered into what we're seeing today.
But
Okay,
you're
I agree with you,
incorrect.
but again,
It's incorrect. The issue that you have, Crisis, is that you sort of treat the Palestinians as if they were like Native Americans, that you didn't understand Western law, right? Or the same sort of like legal structures as we understand them today in like mainstream society. But the truth of the matter is that the Palestinians are a Muslim people who they understood the Quran. They understood legal structures because Islam is a legal religion. It's a legal reality, and the law and the land was controlled under Sharia law under the Ottoman Empire. These people had a concept of contracts. They had a concept of promises. They had a concept of writing deeds and land grants and things like this. This is not something new to them that was just manifested by these random Europeans that are quote unquote Europeans, because a lot of the Jews that were there were not just Europeans.
I would agree with you, Ron.
Under the Osman Empire,
but
it was lie Jewish
why do you
people, they don't believe in God.
Why do you
Muslim, Christian.
Why do you keep jumping in and nobody understands?
No, I'm just telling you. Under the Ottoman Empire.
Let him run.
I'm just telling you. Under the Ottoman Empire, it was living Christian, Muslim, people doesn't believe in nothing. Under the Ottoman Empire, they was living perfectly in peace until the fucking World War, and it is mentioned.
Can we introduce some structure in the conversation? Like, why are we discussing the thing that we're discussing, or is this just like one historical
I'm answering. No, wait a second. I'm answering to discussion is already run. If you come in late,
I'm not late. I've been here for hours.
I'll tell you what we're discussing.
Okay.
We're discussing.
So,
Ash, please, let Ron finish so you can explain it to Emperor.
Emperor, we're discussing it because we were discussing the history of promises made and contracts that were made between the peoples, right? So
not recognized. Make sure you have
recognized or not recognized. We're discussing the entire history. And that's the point that we get
Can
into.
we connect it back to like something tangible?
Give me a second, because I'm trying to get to that point, but you keep interrupting me because you want to see what you are trying to do, Emperor. According to how I understand your argument, is you're trying to use modern day sensibilities to adjudicate modern day sensibilities to adjudicate past realities. And the problem with that is that you can't say that contracts that were written and signed, and even if the promises weren't necessarily kept, are not legally binding between two parties, based off of
Emperor, he's not talking about you. He's talking about me. But it's okay.
Yes. I'm talking about Emperor because that's what he's trying to do. And now, as far as
Ron, can you chill? Like, can we pause the conversation a little bit and make an argument that are consistent and structured and speak to the opponent, right? So I'm not making at this point any argument, right? Like whatsoever. At this point, I'm just trying to understand what the conversation that it seems to have high stakes informs. What does it matter whether Lords of Arabia promised something or didn't promise something, other than that we know that it's a curious history and British reneged on their contract or didn't renege on their contract? What does it inform?
Because the issue that you have right now is that the people
Ron, I ask you not to speak for me. Speak for yourself.
Okay, the issue that is had is that your position seems
I don't have a position, Ron.
You do have a position.
No, that's why I told you he wasn't talking to you.
Why do you keep doing this? Your position is that the Palestinians are basically the Native Americans of Palestine, right? The modern day Palestinians are the Native Americans of Palestine. They were living on that land, and therefore they have
He's talking to me.
Have a right to return and self-determination over a particular space of land.
Who are you speaking to?
So Ron, earlier.
Hold the position that you just assigned to me. So
okay, then what is your position?
My position is all people, irrespective of their indigeneity, have self-determination rights, which is consistent with international law.
Okay, what is that? What tangibility is that? That people can go anywhere they want to and do whatever they want to?
What do you mean? All people, like listen closely, all people have self-determination rights. Self-determination rights are inalienable in international law. This is, international law does not recognize or speak about indigeneity. There is some like small areas, but let's ignore them, right? I'm not using the word indigenous. I haven't used the word native in my argument whatsoever. All people, irrespective of anything, have self-determination rights.
And what does that mean? What does that mean tangibly in the argument of Palestine
Tangibly,
versus
that
Israel?
people in Israel, right, in the nation state of Israel, for example, have self-determination rights and can elect their government and determine how they live within the territorial integrity of the country of Israel, right? People in West Bank and Gaza, right, in the so-called occupied Palestinian territories, right, that are recognized by something like 10 countries less than recognize Israel, also have self-determination rights. Those self-determination rights are hampered by the state of Israel and military occupation and other types of encroachment. That is this argument that I'm making, that people are making generally, that the international community is making, have no reliance whatsoever on Lawrence of Arabia, or for that matter, Balfour Declaration.
Okay, so wait 1 second.
All that historical tangent is for the argument of.
So I have a question.
Hold on, let him alone.
Yeah. So all of this historical tangent misses the mark because it is irrelevant. It is interesting, it is informative, right? But it is irrelevant.
Okay, so can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Quickly. Okay, so did in 2000, okay, do the Palestinians in Israel and the borders of Israel have the right and ability to vote for whomever they choose?
They should, yes.
No, the answer is they do. All Israelis.
Well, they should and they do. You asked me a normative question, right?
Okay.
I asked in a normative manner, right?
Okay.
Whether they do or do not, I'm not aware, or like.
So I have another question for you.
They don't.
So do the Palestinians in Gaza have the ability to have elections?
Well, their rights are hampered. No, and we can blame
Okay,
Palestinian authorities if that's incorrect. If that's Ron,
So how is Israel?
Like, give me space to answer. Like, you ask me a question and you speak immediately.
I thought you answered. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You asked me a question about specific. It's okay. Thank you. You asked me a question about elections specifically, and I agree with you, right? Like, I think their self-determination are hampered by, let's say, the Palestinian Authority, right? But that's not the only actor that denies themselves the responsibility, right? West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem is under military occupation by Israel. Right? A long-term military occupation that the International Court of Justice has ruled illegal and ordered Israel to cease the occupation immediately and pay reparations for Palestinians, among other.
Yeah, but you're adding.
Hold on, Ron. 1 second.
Ron,
One second, Ron. Emperor, for you. Is it possible for a people to have autonomy? You're familiar with the term autonomy, right? Autonomy. Is it possible for people to have autonomy if they're under military occupation?
No, Christ, there's a one. Wait 1 second, because you just.
No. I'm asking him a very specific question.
Okay.
Is it possible?
You're my question.
Is it possible for a people to have autonomy if they're under military occupation?
Look, autonomy is. I'll answer. I kind of understand what you're saying, but autonomy is a little bit of a vague idea, especially when we're talking about context of law of military occupation and international law. The term for it would be self-determination. So, if the military occupation is conducted legally, right, it is possible for people under military occupation to have some measure of self-determination, right? However, that military occupation has to be justified. It cannot be indefinite, right? It cannot be combined with illegal activities such as settlement building, right? So, like, I'm not going to rule out that there can be a situation where military occupation can be in parallel to some level of rights to self-determination, but the case in West Bank, for example, is beyond any of like good case scenario of military occupation, right? Israel is building settlements. Israel is demolishing buildings of Palestinians. Israel is not granting any building permits to Palestinians. Israel restricts movements of Palestinians, etc., etc., etc. Their self-determination is interfered with to such an extent that, again, the International Court of Justice deems it racial segregation, ACRD Article 3 violation, which is the specific article is apartheid, right? So apartheid is incompatible with either autonomy or self-determination.
So
Exactly.
wait one second. So you said a couple of things that I find interesting. So before October 7th, 2023, there were no Israeli military people in Gaza, right? They were all evacuated. The only thing that was there was a wall that put up a border between what is Gaza and what is Israel, right? So that is not military occupation.
Right. Were they not running through Palestinians? Were there not a lot of...
Sweet, let him finish. Like,
Currently, there's military occupation.
Please say you're just a matter of. Can I ask you to say you're done when you're done?
Yeah, sure. So
one second, real quick, guys. Like, I keep hearing each person interrupt the other. If every time you guys are done with a submission, if you say I land or whatever, something that shows you making a conclusion, and then the next person can go ahead. That way we can hear each person clearly.
Oh man, Gemini, goddamn.
So currently, there is a military occupation because of the war, right? The war effort, but that's a different story. But between 2007 and 2023, there was no military occupation. The Gazans and the Gazan citizens, they have the ability to cast their vote, and they have a leadership which they voted for Hamas. However Hamas got there, they voted for Hamas. That was their governmental situation. In the West Bank, actually, I don't know if anybody here has read Oslo 2, right? I think Emperor probably did, but the West Bank is more complicated, right? So one of the issues that we have is that some of the things that currently happen, including the quote-unquote military occupation of the West Bank in Area C, especially in part in Area B, were agreed upon terms by Mahmoud Abbas and as well as Yasser Arafat. So if you read through Oslo 2 and you see the security provisions and the reality, including the settlements that are there, they were agreed to in these negotiations, which they had in Oslo, as they say. So if that, and also the Palestinians in areas A and B, which are allotted to them and agreed upon in Oslo 2, the Oslo Accords, they have their own elections when it is permissible. Unfortunately, Mahmoud Abbas has been their sole leader for the past 20-something years. So did they not have self-determination when they elected him in the first place?
Are you talking about in the West Bank?
Yes.
What you referring to?
Yes, the West Bank.
The first point was Gaza, right?
Yeah, my first.
Yeah. So Gaza. So occupation is not military occupation. The test of military occupation under international law would be ability to exercise effective control, right? The military occupation or occupation in short, right, is not a binary. It's not 0 to 1. Absence of settlements does not necessarily mean absence of occupation, right? The occupation is weaker than it is in West Bank or what we were talking before October 7th, right? But it is still an occupation. Occupation is proportional term, right? So according to, again, International Court of Justice, Gaza, before the events of October 7th, was occupied because of a blockade, right? Because a lot of daily interactions of Palestinians with the state is mediated through Israeli officials or military personnel, including governmental paperwork, a lot of other stuff, provision of services, water. We can go into details of that. So yes, Gaza was militarily occupied. We can disagree on that point, but I'll take this is my position, and not only my position. This is a position that is very quite firm in international law. On the West Bank military occupation is not disputed by Israeli Supreme Court and Israel itself. It is militarily occupied. I already answered the question of elections, irrespective of the nature of government of PA or West Bank or their authoritarian character or non-authoritarian character. That is not the only source of self-determination. Right? Self-determination is primarily a military occupation. We're talking about Israeli behavior rather than Palestinian governance quality. There are many authoritarian states and there are many states with bad governance, right? The question is that Israel occupies a foreign territory, and in that foreign territory it institutes through military occupation a level of control, right? That is, again, according to ICJ, violation of ECHR Article 3, which would be racial segregation and apartheid. That is not through actions of the PA, that is through actions of Israeli government.
Emperor, do you recognize the difference between a militia and the military?
Of course.
Okay, so now, based off of understanding the difference between a militia and a military, when we look at what's happening in Gaza, technically Hamas would not fall under the category of being a military. They would fall under the category, from an international standpoint, of being a militia.
I think that's incorrect. I think that that's fine. You can read it right now. But Hamas is its own government, and Hamas is military. However you wish to declare it as a militia or a military.
You would call it a military wing, but that's no different. That's no different than the militias
in the U.S.
Montana.
Army.
No, not the U.S. Army. Than the militias in Montana calling themselves a military wing of whatever they believe in. It doesn't
like
mean
the National
it's a
Guard.
military. No, not like the National Guard. It's actually smaller.
So what makes the military military?
Okay,
Yeah,
the military means.
Ron, which
Go ahead.
There are many arguments on this side, but we can consider both, and they have different merits for different purposes. Ron, which government's military is Hamas, or which state's government is Hamas?
Hamas, the state of Gaza. The question is Gaza a formal state or is it not a formal state?
It's not.
Well, if you're arguing that Hamas is the government,
that Hamas is the government of Gaza.
There is a state.
Say that again.
You're breaking up, Emperor. Say it again.
The state of Gaza, right? I'm saying the state of Gaza. You have to tell us that there is such a thing as state of Gaza.
I mean, the question is who has the ability or the right to. I think that the issue is that they haven't declared themselves a state, right? I think as part of the issue because Gaza, Hamas and the PLO both have observer seats of observer non-member seats of the United Nations, right? So fine. They may not necessarily be formal states, but I think the relationship is. Wait 1 second. I think that the relationship is that of Puerto Rico and the United States in this matter.
Here's a difference. So, the reason why I asked that question is because often we get these talking points where they're like, oh, they only target. We target military sites. We don't target civilian sites. If there's not a formal military and they're a militia, that means that you're targeting civilian sites. You're not targeting military sites.
So you're making a de facto argument.
They don't have an actual military.
They
don't have an actual military.
It's de facto because they aren't a formalized state. Therefore, they aren't a formalized military. Even though they have military grade weapons and military grade power, therefore you cannot attack them as if they are military. Just because they don't have that.
That's not what I'm saying, Ron. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, if you want clarification, I can give you the clarification. What I am saying, Ron, is this. Because of the fact that they are a militia, not a military, that means that y'all are like the media in general is able to paint a broad brush about anywhere that's attacked and say that that's where Hamas is. They're depicting them as a military, but who are they a military of?
They're a military of Gaza and Gaza. Listen, Hamas is a recognized government, right? Hamas is a recognized.
Is Gaza recognized as a state?
Hamas is a recognized government of Gaza. Hamas is the recognized government. Hamas is the recognized government internationally as of Gaza. They are the government of Gaza. They function as such. They present paperwork and administer as such. They have military grade weapons as such, and they interact with other countries as such.
The cartel has military grade weapons. It doesn't make them a state. So here's the thing.
But you're saying that a military is only a military when it represents a state, but that's a false statement.
That's actually the international understanding. What are you talking about?
Okay,
that's literally the international understanding.
So you're saying that any group of people who formalize themselves into some sort of random military, all right, for lack of a better term, fine. So you cannot treat it. So you're saying that you cannot assault all.
Folks, let's allow other people to speak.
Wait, I'm trying to understand the argument here. All members of a military that do not represent a state are militias. Therefore, all of those individual members are civilians.
You cannot have a military without a state. Like that's.
And I disagree with you. So they're terrorists. So the answer is that they're terrorists.
Oh, now they're terrorists instead of a militia.
If you attack people unwarrantedly, then I guess you're a terrorist, right?
The term is known. Armed group, but let other people speak in. I think we're in another tangent.
Hey, thank you, Gemini, for letting us rock for that long, by the way. And thank you to Ms. Patty and Ms. First Lady as well.
And everybody else that had to weather all of that. Thank them too, Craig.
Thank all of them.
Yeah. Send them some cash app, bro, because I don't know where else you can go and just.
I don't know what the cash app though.
Well, send them some flowers or something, bro, because that was painful, man. We was talking about 1947 and Zionism, and then Ryan just takes it.
You're the people that brought up those questions, right? I was trying.
I didn't bring up none of that nonsense, bro. I didn't bring up none of that nonsense, bro. That was crisis and emperor and what the hell ever, bro. I got thrown down because you wouldn't answer the question what we were talking.
I was just trying to answer the question about the Messian and ushering in the Messianism.
Yeah,
I wasn't even talking about it messy.
No, you weren't. Crisis was. This is what
exactly, bro. Yeah, went down that rabbit hole, bro. Good job.
Yeah, well, it's a false claim that a lot of Messianic people are people that focus on Messianism.
He brought up the 12. He brought up the what was it called? The 12er.
12.
All hell rose from there, bro. It went down that road. Good job.
Well, you should look it up because the 12ers are really in control of the Republic.
I ain't busting your balls. I'm just stating the facts, bro. Messer. I mean, I'm 12er. And then Ron ran on it, bro, and here we are. Just I left a few times, came back.
You got it.
Maybe the room is excited to hear that. I don't know. I'll listen.
Well, sweet, you had your opportunity.
Not to talk about 12ers and all that shit and military or not a military or I never brought. Don't let me own that shit. I know what I like to talk about, especially when I see a title. I try to stay focused.
Back to your point, though, sweet. Go ahead. You got it.
Nah, bro. Shit, I done had 1,000 trillion thoughts since y'all just went down that road. I was in. Don't let me interrupt the fun. Go back. I'm sure everybody's enjoying your conversation.
The only point that me and Emperor were trying to bring up was the fact that this is not a fair exchange that's happening.
Yeah, that had nothing to do with Ron. Ron's intention wasn't that, though, bro. Ron took over all that.
It's a state going against a militia. That's what's happening right now.
Great. Beautiful. Meanwhile, we got how many days left on this 2 weeks?
Yeah, states and going against militias, it happens all the time, actually. There are plenty of militias in countries where the countries are next to countries that are in fights together. It happens very frequently.
And can you see how that's like nowhere in the title? States versus militias or militaries. Can you see how that's going down into some weeds that put that title to the title of the room and see how many will show up. State military.
Isn't that a product of decentralization now? And would you say the world's becoming more decentralized? Absolutely, Elif. It's easier to break down the individuals than it is to break down the states.
But also, by the way, it's a good thing that the world is becoming decentralized.
This morning, Putin came out and said that he's going to intervene in the war if it goes on too long.
That was always the plan.
He needs to focus on finishing his own.
Countries operate in coalitions. They don't operate in individualistic states.
Which is the very reason why when Trump decides LeBron to go along with what you know is going to happen, yeah, it's a geopolitical world. Yeah, so other countries, Iran's very vested in what the hell happens. Russia's very vested. Yeah, so now to me we're getting back to some real conversation about how the whole world is going to get drawn in, whatever 2005, 1950, whatever you're talking about, the whole world's about to be drawn into some drama behind Netanyahu and that's what we're about to witness. However you justify it, Ron, or whoever justifies it, that is what's about to happen. And guess who's cool with that? Obviously the IDF and Netanyahu.
I don't think the IDF is.
Hold on, Ron. We're gonna try to apply some rules here about just not cutting somebody off, bro. I've been quiet as hell.
That's very difficult.
Keep cooking, sweet. Keep cooking.
See, Ron got to come with the sly remarks. That's difficult.
Sweet, keep cooking.
I'm trying, bro. I'm trying, but he's good at his tactics. Him and Normal are good at. You know, I don't.
Baby, just talk, please.
I'm trying to, but nobody checks Ron. You notice in this?
I'm here to make sure the conversation goes accordingly. Go ahead and give your submission.
I'm trying, bro. I don't let my blood pressure get all high. So I just shut up for a while because once he understands that, man, I don't want to match that nuclear energy and just to have a conversation, man.
You have talked quite a bit today, so please stop whining.
See that crazy talk, Gemini. Have you heard me talk since you've been in the room?
Hey, yo, Sweet. That's what you were saying, bro.
Sweet, go ahead, give your submission.
Yeah, I thought so. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. When I get the spirit again to talk, watch. I'll come and say something, and then Ron, watch how Ron cuts me.
Nobody's gonna cut nobody off. I'm gonna hear it.
Ron just cut me off, Gemini.
Gotcha. Who's
No, you got the dog in here now. He about to make sure he don't bark on anybody who cutting people off.
Yeah, I just want to facilitate a good conversation where everybody can be heard. That's all. Now nobody want to talk.
Nah, that's hilarious, right? Look, hey. Nah, but LF, you're right. LF, you're 100% right. And LF, do you see the greater play at hand? Do you see what happened? So like when like sometimes somebody will give you a quote, but they won't give you what was said before or after to give you context. So when you're looking at the context, look at what happened before. Remember, about a month ago, Trump tried to divorce himself from Netanyahu and from Putin. And look at what the escalation happened to be. And then now he's coming back in and then applying more pressure on one side than the other. You know what I'm saying? Like this, I don't know how many of y'all have read The Art of the Deal, but everything that this dude does is literally in his damn book. Literally in his book. He's applying the pressure now because of the fact that he's always wanted a certain outcome. But I'll leave it at that.
For Christ, do you think Netanyahu knows how to play Trump? Do you think he read the book? The Art of the Deal?
I think he might have read the book, but I'm not really sure. I haven't come to a complete conclusion as to whether or not he's smarter, because Netanyahu is not exactly the sharpest.
Is he playing America? Is Netanyahu working America for his benefit? How about that?
Maybe not him specifically, but the IDF is not stupid, and Mossad specifically is not stupid.
Okay, so Mossad and the IDF, are they playing America? All American stack?
Oh yeah, Mossad has been playing America for like the last, 40, 50, 60 years? You know what I mean? Since the Bear Pigs? Like they've been playing America for a long time.
So a good American should just do what? Just sit back and say nothing?
So I want to point out something this week.
One second, real quick, Ron. I've read The Art of the Deal a couple times actually, and one of the things that he focuses on and hyper focuses on, and he used several aspects of that on a regular basis, but there's certain aspects that he hyper focuses on, and the one that I've noticed that he uses the most, especially this term, is boost perception at all costs, right? Basically, I don't want to say lie, but I will say embellish to your benefit, and I think that's what's happening here.
He's pushing us to the brink, even though it's not really at the brink. Is that what you're saying?
Or making us feel that way.
So Gemini, it's an interesting point you bring up because it also goes to how he selected his cabinet secretary. Did you notice how much more media savvy they are than his last cabinet?
Very true. Controlling the perception.
He definitely shows people who know how to guide the narrative. Because if we look at it now, we're thinking that we're on the brink of World War III.
Well, Trump's initial choices were quite good, right? Because he had that girl that worked on Obama's team, right, as both the political advisor and the digital coordinator. And then he had Cambridge Analytica, right? So I think they just did this one, they just refined it. Oh, and with the, of course, with the Teal complete.
Gemini, you remember when he said to the Ukrainian president, "You have no cards"?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that not right out of his book?
Unfortunately.
That's what I'm saying, yo. Like we're just sitting through a whole fucking stage show. Like this is Trump 101.
Well, and you
You know
have
what I'm
to
saying?
realize it though, right? Because, Macron talked to Zelensky afterwards, and Zelensky is in a much better shape with Trump now. So he learned from that situation.
I don't know if you want to say he learned. I think that the way he handled him affected public perception, his public perception. Like, you remember how they weren't very receptive to him. I forget which event it was, but they gave the other gentleman a standing ovation. Like, I really think it didn't do him any benefits. I don't see how that helped in any way, shape, or form. And it definitely didn't lead to anything that helped Russia and the UK come together on any level, as you can see now. Like, he even realizes that he is being led astray and that Russia has no intentions of stopping its advances. So I don't see how that helps, CEO. I just don't.
So, if you think about how bad it was after Zelensky left the White House in terms of the perception on the right side of the aisle and some of the criticism of Zelensky, what I'm saying
You mean
is
his
that,
outfit?
his outfit and also his temperament, right? Those were the two critiques, his outfit, his temperament. And so, over that next, month, he ended up doing a lot of things differently. He did the mineral deal, he wrote a letter to Trump and all this and that, communicated a little bit differently, and he's in way better shape now in terms of his access to the White House and perception.
So you're saying Trump whipped him into shape, basically?
No, I'm saying Macron whipped him into shape, not Trump. Macron.
Yeah, it was definitely
Because Macron gave him advice on how to handle that.
And Gemini, do you remember what Vance said to Zelensky when they were in the White House and they did that thing in front of the press? And
Vaguely. I vaguely.
He jumped out of nowhere and said, "Y'all need to be grateful."
Yeah.
like, yo, he jumped all the way out of pocket with that shit. Just jumped out and was like, "Y'all need to be grateful that essentially this war would be over if we let Russia do what they really want to do."
But also, you got to remember that UK acts as if just their location acts as a buffer between the UN and Russia, right? So we don't want them to be overrun because even though they're not a part of the UN, they're strategically positioned to be an ally.
You mean we're not a part of NATO?
NATO, that's what
Right,
NATO. That's what I meant to say.
Right.
But even though they're not a part of NATO, they're strategically positioned to be an ally to NATO because of their location and the fact that they are not pro-Russia, obviously.
So Gemini, check this out, right? If you have your land and you're raising all your dogs on your land, and I decide I want to raise dogs on the border of your land, but we already had an agreement that I shouldn't have my dogs so close to your land, and then I do it anyway. You're not gonna feel some type of way?
Man, I get what you're saying, but if we want to look at the way Russia moves historically, they make an agreement and break an agreement, and then reconvene and do it all over again. They make promises and break promises, and then reconvene and do it all over again.
And we don't do the same?
No, not to the same degree as Russia, nah, we don't.
We put missiles on their border, CEO. What are you talking about?
We put missiles on Russia's border? What are you saying? I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So if you remember in the 90s, because I get the impression that you and I are close in age. If you remember the 90s, when they had the agreement originally, we weren't supposed to have missiles that close to their border. But we funded a regime change, and with that regime change came our ability to then claim that country wants to be a part of NATO, and then us moving in missiles closer to the border of Russia. That goes against the agreement. Like, if me and you have the agreement, but then I use a third party to try to go around me and use agreement, you still gonna feel some type of way. Because you're gonna feel like I broke the agreement with you.
I think the thing that changed was Vladimir Putin.
Well, it wasn't just Putin, right? Because remember, him and George W. Bush got along at first, and George W. Bush said he could see in his soul all this and that. It was, well, let Putin tell it. It was when we decided to go into Iraq. That's when the schism started for Putin. Let him tell it. That's what he...
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie to you, CEO. I always thought that he was lying about that. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I felt like Putin was capping on that part. It had nothing to do with Iraq. You know what I mean? When you listen to Putin's speeches and you translate them shits, he talks about Libya, he talks about expansionism. Like, and I've mentioned this before about the game of Weiqi. You know what I mean? It isn't chess or checkers, it's Weiqi. And in the game of Weiqi, it's all about strategic encirclement, controlling the board.
Well, he might have been expecting an invitation to join us in Iraq. That might have been.
So, like Crisis, you're exactly right, and I think it's awesome that you're following it up with the kind of whole encirclement doctrine, right? Like, thing from, right, putting anti-ICBM missile batteries as close as they could to Russia. Basically, like, you know, you shoot some shit up, and we'll shoot the shit you shoot up right down. It basically, like, makes your nuclear deterrent not a nuclear deterrent. That's like a big threat. Clinton started it. Bush cranked it into full gear, putting Patriot missile batteries and all kinds of anti-ICBM batteries in Poland and getting him as close to Russia as he possibly could, because we're trying to, like, encircle them. The whole point about Ukraine being strategic to us is our thing is cut you off from the sea, right? That was, you know, Russia and the Tsars, that was like their big kind of claim to fame, was becoming a power in the Black Sea. The Black Sea is like a warm water port that allows Russia access to the rest of the world. When the Tsars took control of Crimea and all that, like that, we're talking back in the 1800s, that was like their big strategic boon, or like big strategic win for them. The USSR, obviously the whole Cold War happened, but at the end of the Cold War, us trying to cut them off from the Black Sea, like that was our major goal. And like, that's what we do. That's what we did with Iraq. That's what we did with Iran, Kuwait. Like, that is Iraq's way to the sea. Without Kuwait, Iraq couldn't get to the sea. Like, that was the big thing that we wanted to do, was cut Iraq off from the sea via Kuwait and support for them. Like, this is our thing. Repeatedly, time and time again, conflict after conflict, what we do is we come in and we get you away from the fucking ocean. We're doing it right now. Burkina Faso and the Ivory Coast. Like, the Ivory Coast is Burkina Faso's way to the sea, right? As soon as Burkina Faso fucking falls into military control under Traore, what do? We got people over there cutting deals with Ivory Coast to keep them from being able to get their shit to the sea. This is like what we do. We make sure you can't get to the fucking ocean. And that's what Ukraine's importance is to block Russia's access to the sea. So, like, and this is kind of like has been our game since the collapse of the Soviet Union, right? That's why Ukraine was so fucking important. And that's why kind of keeping them contained and keeping them encircled, keeping them away from the sea was so important. And that's why, that's like Russia's biggest strategic win in the Ukraine war, was regaining the control of Crimea and being able to reassert their access to the warm water ports of the Black Sea again. Like, that's what it's all about. Like, it's just all about
take it a step further.
Control
Take it a step
you.
further. Take it a step further. What does Iran control?
What does Iran control?
Mm-hmm. What canal do they what canal do they currently control?
Oh, like the Strait of Hormuz, like the Persian Gulf and all that.
And the Suez Canal.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is all. That's why I said it's all just a play.
Wait, you say that Iran controls the Suez Canal?
I believe Iran is.
I can
Those are the Suez Canals, right?
Yeah,
Oh no, my bad. I'm tripping. No, I'm tripping. It's the Straits of Hormuz. You're right.
Good afternoon, Patty, First Lady, Dr. H.E., Lisa. Y'all outside or y'all sleeping?
A little bit of both.
Sleeping outside is crazy.
After last night, Lisa,
What'd y'all do last night? Oh, wait, I thought a room was open at 4 in the morning. How late y'all go?
Was it?
Yeah.
I was in here. If I went in here, I was knocked out. My PTR was partying, but not.
you just gotta go listen to the replays. Anyway, what's going on? But why y'all stop the conversation if y'all wasn't gonna talk? What's going on? I hate when y'all do that.
We've been talking. I was just saying hi.
Well, stop the conversation and then ain't got shit else.
Go back to it. Go back.
Yeah, but now how am I supposed to get it started? I didn't stop it. You gotta get it started.
He said you push pause.
No, I did not. He pressed pause.
I'm saying you were saying he pushed pause.
Correct.
Yeah.
Go ahead, CEO. I don't understand why you still. What's going on?
So is this thing on? Is this?
It was on CEO. We can hear you.
Yeah, so Iran and Russia, yeah. All right, now go back to y'all.
I'm just saying it's all about strategic encirclement.
Yeah.
It's all about strategic encirclement.
And
So,
No first lady to delegate it.
Prices, check it out. And the rest of the room. In 2022, there was a Louisiana Tech Research Group. They prepared a report that said that the U.S. is preparing for limited nuclear engagement.
Yeah, all that means is tactical nukes because they know that the Moabs are not going to be able to go deep enough to blow up the facilities that they want to blow up. That's all that means.
And possibly even extending that, the extended deterrence that they're practicing with NATO, pretty much amplifying that.
Yeah, but LF, I want everybody in this room to understand something. They're never going to put off a nuke in Iran, because if they put off a nuke in Iran, it means death to the majority of the Middle East. They share are y'all familiar with a water table? A water table is what's under the ground, the aquifers that are under the ground. If they did that, they would literally be sentencing a large swath of the population to death. And some of that population will be the population that you just recently saw Trump do a world tour for. You know what I mean? For those of you who don't understand the terrain of Iran is almost like a gigantic ass version of Las Vegas because it's surrounded by mountains. It's in a bowl. But what they do share.
With that said, sorry to interrupt you, but just to inject, what you're saying right now, doesn't that sort of give rise to authoritarian governments?
Authoritarian governments?
Or the authoritarian governments?
Yeah, if you read the book Economic Hitman, I don't fuck about letting authoritarian governments come into power as long as we can control them. We don't give a fuck about whether or not they're authoritarian or not. That whole myth of democracy, you can throw that out the window. We don't give a fuck about anybody being a democracy. That's the reason why.
And shit, to make it even deeper, Trump don't give a fuck about us being a democracy. What are you talking about?
Exactly, Gemini, exactly. But go ahead, LF.
No, I was just connecting, saying that, there's already a lattice around the world of these authoritarian governments. Strengthen what they have.
I'll say this.
Democracy only exists as long as all the people agree that it's a democracy. The government, the people, the military, all of those things have to agree that everybody's in a democracy together. But it's a very fragile situation, as you can see.
Well put, Ron. Did y'all hear that latest? I don't know if it's the latest, but it's a recent hot mic of Trump, and he was discussing something with someone, and they were talking about how the other country's people listens to their leader and does this every bidding. And Trump said, "That's how I want my people." And that word is so telling.
Trump was bugging
Because
him
we're
out.
talking, one second crisis. Because I think those words are so telling. Because if we're talking about the Constitution, it's not my people, it's the people, right? The people. Like, that's who he is. But when you start saying my people.
Oh, he said my people instead of the people.
Mindset. Yeah.
Okay. I should have known that. Yeah. I didn't catch that. I'm going to have to go back and look at that video clip again. But yeah, I didn't catch that. But I mean, is that so far out of the realm of the personality that we're referring to?
No, it's fitting and telling. It's both.
It's 100% in alignment with what we talking.
Yeah, I mean, do y'all believe?
Find that clip, I'll drop it into the chat so y'all can check it out.
Let me ask y'all a question, because you know FDR was the last person that they allowed to run for a third term. You know what I mean? And you also know that according to the law, if there's a war, the sitting president doesn't necessarily have to leave if there's a war, especially if it's like around the time of an election. The sitting president doesn't have to leave in the middle of that war.
That's right, because it would cause too much chaos.
Right, that's the reason why FDR was allowed to get a third term.
Pretty similar to Netanyahu's mindset of like, as long as you can keep drama going, then nobody will want him or allow him to leave, because the only one that knows the chaos or what's being created is that person.
The one who's already in it.
I'm not saying it does work like that, bro. You don't have to come off the mic to interject.